Today's
episode
has
been brought
to you
by
Schedulicity.
You're listening to episode 39 of the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast. Today we hear from 7 amazing yoga teachers as they share what they would say to their brand new yoga teacher self if they could go back in time. I'm your host, Shannon Crow. I'm a mother of 3, a yoga teacher, and a consultant for yoga teachers. Speaking of being a mother, that was my youngest, Sage, giving a shout out of thanks to Schedulicity at the top of our episode. Thank you, Sage. That was a lot of fun. If you're like me and you have more questions than answers on this yoga entrepreneurship journey, you are in the right place. This podcast was born out of me wanting a place where all yoga teachers could feel supported every week between the classes, workshops, and trainings that we are teaching or attending. Every week, we get to hear from yoga teachers and other professionals. And together, we can connect to knowledge, inspiration, stories, actionable steps, and most of all, we can connect to a supportive community. Today's episode really showcases this. If you are a yoga teacher or if you're in a yoga teacher training right now, you're welcome to join our private Facebook group. Just go to theconnectedyogateacher.com and you'll see the join button there right on our website. The topic for today was actually a question that I posted. I wrote in our private Facebook group, if you were to meet up with yourself in your final yoga teacher training weekend, what wisdom would you share? What would you say to your brand new yoga teacher self that would be helpful? So many of you shared answers. I think there were 38 comments on the thread. I cannot read them all out today, but I'm super excited that you actually get to hear from some of the yoga teacher community with what they would say to their brand new yoga teacher self. Before we dive into today's episode, let's hear from Courtney of Schedulicity.
Hello, Connected Yoga Teachers. This is Courtney with the Schedulicity Hot Tip of the Week. Sometimes when you're starting your business, it can feel like all of the responsibilities on your shoulders. But our award-winning support team is here to help. You can reach us 7 days a week for a phone call, live chat, or email question. When you're on Schedulicity.com, click the purple speech bubble button in the lower right-hand corner of your screen and say hello. We love to help and we're excited to watch things fall into place for your business. You got into this business to do yoga, not to have to run a business. So let us handle the business and you handle the yoga.
Thank you for that, Courtney. Thank you also to Schedulicity, who's soon to host the Fireside Chat with Schedulicity. If you are thinking about an online scheduling software, make sure you show up. It's November the 29th. It's online and it's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, let's dive into today's episode. First up, we're going to hear from Betsy Brockett, who is an artist, a small-scale farmer, a yogi, and a cancer survivor. Betsy enjoys life on 12 acres with her husband and 2 dogs. She teaches power and restorative classes to her local community in Leechburg, Pennsylvania.
Hello, Connected Yoga Teachers. This is Betsy Brockett from Leechburg, Pennsylvania, just outside of Pittsburgh. If I could go back and talk with my new yoga teacher self, I would impress upon her how important it is that every teacher has a teacher. I would tell myself to never stop learning, seeking new mentors, types of instruction, and paths of practice. I realized that making sure that I'm a student first keeps me rooted in the practice of yoga and also deepens my confidence as a teacher and continues to fill me with endless inspiration.
Thank you so much for this, Betsy. I feel like this was a hard lesson for me to learn as a new yoga teacher. I really jumped in and loved yoga as a student. And then when I became a teacher, I slowly moved away from continuing to be that student for a while. And I would add to that as well that sometimes I felt stuck until I went to another yoga teacher training, when the other thing that would help is just simply going to another class with another teacher and really being in the mind of student. So thank you for reminding us about that, Betsy. Next, we hear from Jamie Grollman, who found yoga at the age of 51 and completed her yoga teacher training in 2014.
My name is Jamie Grollman from Clearwater, Florida. If I could tell myself something as a new teacher that I didn't learn in yoga teacher training, this is what I'd say to myself. Be prepared to make mistakes when you teach, and when you do, own it. Students love authenticity in their teachers. Be prepared for the stories that students will share privately with you. They're honest, they're gut-wrenching, they come from the soul. It's humbling. Look forward to each and every day being completely different, and most of all, be prepared for the overwhelming amount of love you will receive from students. It's an honor.
Thank you for that, Jamie. I also feel like it is a real honor, and often students will come up to me at the end of class and, like you said, share many stories. And I've learned over the years that my best gift to students is to be a really good listener, sometimes saying back what I have heard them say. I also appreciate that you really brought into this being okay with and really embracing the mistakes that we make as yoga teachers. I feel like there is no one out there that is perfect. There is no yoga teacher that is getting every cue exactly right. And I laugh along with my students when I call feet hands or when I mix up the left and the right side. So thank you for this, Jamie. Next, we hear from Kristina Kelly. Kristina is a mom, a yogi, and a business owner who loves bringing people together. I feel like Kristina has really asked a lot of great questions in our private Facebook group. I remember she was asking about naming her studio. So she's just opened a brand new yoga studio, and it's called Balance Breath Studio. And I feel like that was really supported and held by our yoga teacher community group. So here's what Kristina has to say.
I think one of the things I would have told my new yoga teacher self is to not listen to your ego and not try to cater to what you think your students want, and to be yourself, to allow yourself to come through your practice and shine out into your students' practice, and then they will come. If you try to pretend to be something you're not, and you try to host your classes in a way that you think will bring more students in rather than in the way that completely shows who you are at the center of yourself, then it's not going to happen for you. I found myself really trying too hard, I think, in the beginning, and I still got students, but the vibe just wasn't right. I felt like I wasn't giving them my all, and it wasn't until I totally shed that part of me, that belief that I had to be something to get these people that I had to pretend to be, then I couldn't truly be successful.
Thank you for this gem, Kristina. I would also add to that I feel like when I was a new teacher, I was also jumping around at all of the opportunities that were coming in. So your message here really speaks to that part and that memory that I have of being a new yoga teacher. For example, if someone would say, hey, would you like to lead this group in our office? And we want to work on really a lot of cardio and a lot of movement, then I would say, yeah, like I'm a yoga teacher and I'll be there. And it took a lot of bumping around and kind of feeling like, is this the kind of class that I want to be teaching? You know, I taught some hot classes and fast vinyasa flow and realized this wasn't really the yoga that was lighting me up. And when I settled in and really started to connect with the yoga that lit me up and the yoga that felt really authentic to me, then you're right. That's when then my student numbers went up. And I love that you also brought in the word success here, because I feel like we sometimes get caught up in defining success with money or student numbers, but it's really how we're feeling as a yoga teacher. Thank you, Kristina. Next, we hear from Catherina, who left the corporate world after 14 years as a marketing manager for Procter & Gamble. And her and her partner, Franco, whom she met on November the 11th of 2011, they created Tu Espacio Yoga y Bienestar. Together, they lead the biggest yoga classes in Peru.
Hola, Connected Yoga Teachers. This is Caterina from Tu Espacio Yoga y Bienestar, located in Lima, Peru. If I could go back in time and talk to myself on the last day of my first teacher training, I would tell myself, Caterina, truly enjoy this ride. Own it. It is the right decision. You will touch so many lives that you simply cannot imagine. This road will bring you so many smiles. And never, never stop doing your personal yoga practice. And start meditating now. It will make everything much, much easier. Namaste.
Gracias, Caterina. I feel like your smile just shines through in that audio clip. And I feel like I'm a little more connected to the joyful side of being a yoga teacher. So thank you for that. Thank you also for bringing in, yet again, staying connected to a personal practice and also meditation. Next, we hear from Amanda Kingsmith, a yoga teacher and also a podcaster. Amanda is the host of the MBOM podcast, which stands for Mastering the Business of Yoga. We heard from Amanda in episode 34, where she really dove in and talked to us about the business side of yoga and how to really embrace the business side of yoga. Amanda is a fellow Canadian. She's an enthusiastic world traveler as well, and she doesn't mind sharing that she's really keen on avoiding the tough Alberta winters. Amanda has traveled to over 50 countries and 6 continents. Here's what she would say to her brand new yoga teacher self.
Hey, Connected Yoga Teachers. This is Amanda from the Mastering the Business of Yoga podcast at www.mbomyoga.com. If I could go back and talk to my brand new yoga teacher self, I would tell her that you don't have to master every single asana before you can teach your first class. I got home from my yoga teacher training and I felt like, oh no, my practice isn't strong enough for me to be able to teach anyone. How can I teach people yoga if I can't do handstand or pincha mayurasana or all those crazy arm balances that you see on Instagram? And what I've learned since then is you don't have to be a perfect yogi to be a great yoga teacher. It's about sharing your knowledge of the practice, your love of the practice, and your passion will come through. You don't need to be able to do every single posture in order to be able to share other postures with people who are practicing. So if you are a brand new yoga teacher, I hope that you go out there and teach, even if you can't do headstand, handstand, or any of those advanced asanas. Know that you will continue to progress and grow and that you can still be an amazing yoga teacher. Thanks so much. Bye.
Thank you for that, Amanda. It's so good to know. My one pose that really catches me and is so frustrating to me that I cannot do without some kind of support, blocks, a wall, something, is crow pose. And I often will share with students that makes me really frustrated because it's my last name. I feel like I should be able to do the pose. And I feel like that gives everyone a permission in the class that some poses are more challenging than others for us. And it's different for everyone. So thank you, Amanda, for encouraging us to get out there and teach no matter what asana we can do or not do. Next, we hear from Lisa, who is the owner and founder of Synchronicity Wellness. Lisa really supports mothers of all ages as they reconnect with themselves, reclaim rest, and practice self-discovery in a way that fosters life balance.
Hey there, Connected Yoga teacher friends. This is Lisa from Synchronicity Wellness. And if I can go back and talk with my new yoga teacher self, I would kindly tell her, darling, you have permission to be a beginner. There are no mistakes, only opportunities for growth. Your students will connect with your courage to be real, not perfection. Trust that the universe has your back. So whoever is meant to show up to class that day will be there. When your inner critic's voice overrides your brilliant inner truth, remember the soulful reason and purpose you were drawn to teach yoga in the first place, and create a sequence and teach from that place. When you're scared, place your hands on your heart center and talk compassionately to yourself, just as you would talk to a small child who is suffering. And each time you teach is an opportunity to practice courage. Lastly, remember you are a vessel for divine love to flow through. This way of thinking gently nudges ego aside, and you'll remember that the reason you're drawn to teach yoga is to be a humble beacon of love and light. Namaste.
so much for this, Lisa. I like that you said that each time that we show up to teach, it is a practice of courage. I think that's so true. I remember how terrified I was as a brand new yoga teacher. I had planned out my practice class that I would do with my yoga teacher training group. I actually planned that class out for a month. So 30 days of planning, which now seems really over the top and like it's too much planning. But at the time, because I was so afraid to get up in front of others and teach yoga, I needed that time and I needed some space and I needed to really dig in and find that courage. Thank you, Lisa, for sharing that with us. Lastly, we hear from Allie Bright, who is a model turned yoga teacher. Allie now dedicates her life to the studies and practice of yoga. She's currently learning Sanskrit and expanding her understanding of the philosophies and mythologies of Indian religion and yogic culture. She incorporates these studies into her yoga nidra classes that are available both in person and on YouTube.
Hi, Connected Yoga teachers. What a pleasure it is to be learning and sharing with all of you. My name is Allie Bright, and I teach in Los Angeles, California, and occasionally in my hometown, Huntington, West Virginia. I first started teaching about 3 years ago. And while it doesn't sound like a lot of time, I have learned so very much. One thing I wish I would have known and put into my practice and in my teachings, is to stop counting the people attending class. These people are just that, people, not numbers. In the practice, while sometimes social media can portray it as very glamorous, is not an external and extroverted practice. It's actually quite the opposite. It is an internal journey. So stop counting and wishing for more students to attend your classes. Rather, take a look at those beautiful students you have now, the regulars that attend your class week after week. For those are not only your students, but also your teachers. So my little piece of advice for all you yoga teachers out there is to make friendships and connections with these people. Let them know how much they mean to you and how much you appreciate their attendance and their introspection. For this is not a popularity contest. This is yoga.
Thank you for that, Allie. So many pieces of wisdom in that. Thank you to everyone who contributed to this, whether it was in the Facebook post or in an audio clip. If you feel like you'd really like to connect further with these teachers that we've heard from today, all of their contact information, their social media links are in our show notes, along with a picture of them so you can kind of put a face to a name. And I just want to call out a couple other comments that were in that thread. Jenny said, "It's not about what your students think of you, it's what they think of them." So I think this is so good. It's not about what your students think of you, it's what they think of them. Alexandra and Portia really talked about not waiting for the perfect opportunity or circumstance to start teaching, just to really get out there and start teaching. And I know that can be challenging when you're in a yoga teacher training. You're trying to put all of the pieces together. And I know that I've worked with many new yoga teachers and said, you know what, just start. It'll be easier if you just start. And some of them have come back to me to say, you know what, Shannon, you're right. If I wouldn't have started then, I wouldn't have had the courage to do so later either. Many of you also in that thread talked about really just showing up as yourself or trying out different styles of yoga until you found the yoga that really fits you and your teaching style. I also really appreciate one of the comments in here from Katie where she said, shut up. Sometimes Sean and I will joke around in our house to just shut up and let the yoga happen. Often we can be really chatty and feel like we need a lot of answers and we need to share a lot of information with students, where really if we ask them, step your foot here and start to move like this with the breath, it's just breath and movement and we're quiet. that, and we're letting them be in the experience of that. So thank you for sharing that, Katie. Alrighty, connected yoga teachers. Oh, I have a couple of things to let you know about. If you are wanting to work with me, I have a few options available. I work through one-on-one consultation calls that are booked on Zoom. Even if we live close to each other, it's easier for me to book on Zoom so that I can record the calls for you and you can review all of the information. I also have an in-person training coming up in the spring of 2018. So it runs from April 13th, 14th, 15th, May 4th, 5th, 6th, June 8th, 9th, 10th, and that's in Meaford, Ontario at Beth Reddy's Yoga Studio. And it is the MamaNurture yoga teacher training that Kim and I co-lead. It's where we teach fertility, prenatal, postnatal, birthing, and baby and me, all of that wrapped into one RPYT, so you become a registered prenatal yoga teacher at the end of that. It is an 85-hour course. To find out more about that course, or even just to check out some prenatal yoga flows, you can go to mamanurture.ca. So that's MAMA for mama, and then nurture.ca. I'll also put a link to that in our show notes. I want to read out a review from Angela, who's from the United States. Angela says, "In every podcast episode, I learn something new. This is a must listen to for all new and seasoned yoga teachers. I love that there are a variety of different topics covered, from yoga business to yoga philosophy. Thank you so much, Shannon, for providing yoga teachers with rich and useful content." Thank you, Angela, for listening and for taking the time to go on and leave a review. For any of you who are listening, it means so much if you can leave a review in iTunes. You can do that right from our website. Any episode, you'll see a button up at the top that says leave a review. And also, are you already subscribed to the podcast? So in your podcast app, check and see if you are subscribed. When you are, then the episodes get downloaded directly to your mobile device as soon as we release them. Huge shout out of thanks to our team over here, Laura, Rob, and Samantha. Thank you so much for all the work that you're doing. And thank you to the connected yoga teachers out there who are listening. You really make the show happen every single week. Take care, stay connected. See you next week.